There's advisors that leave big brokerage houses that go to independent brokerage houses that then hang their own shingle and call it Carmine's Financial on the door. Those aren't actually, that's not true independence. You're actually underneath the hood of another broken dealer.
And in every transition, there's always a surprise. There's someone that comes that you would have never thought would say, hey, you know what? I'd rather work with you. You wouldn't think in a million years. And there's someone that doesn't come that surprises you.
If you're switching around from broker dealer to broker dealer, you're literally just trading off your problems. All right, welcome back. This is another episode of the Broken Dealer Podcast. I'm your host, Daren Blonski, with my co-host, Carmine Corino. We're going to do something kind of fun today. We're going to do a rapid question and answer, right? We're going to talk about questions that come up when advisors want to leave, thinking about leave, are leaving, have left, maybe reconsidering, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully you find this discussion valuable and insightful on how you can become a more effective financial advisor on the independent space. So first question goes to you, Carm.
All right, let's do it.
What will be the financial impact of me leaving and going independent?
I get this question a lot because comp structure is much different in the independent side than, say, a broker dealer, say an insurance company, a wirehouse. I can talk about experience for the people that have come, and we've seen a 5 to 20% increase in revenue for every net dollar of AUM managed for a couple of reasons. One, probably being the most, what we see the most common, and Daren, I know you and I have spoken about this in the past, is program fees, right? So they're paying a TAMP charge or they're paying a program fee for whatever they're getting, right? So the firm that the insurance company I came from, they were charging a 27 BIP program fee to a TAMP who on our side charges 12 bips, under $1 million to 10 bips over $1 million. So where is that other revenue going? I'll leave it up to you to guess where it went, but it didn't go in the advisor's pocket. So when we're extracting advisors from those types of environments, they see an increase in revenue overnight. Okay. It is a little bit of a tricky question because we won't know. We don't know what clients are going to transition. We don't know what clients you may not want to ask to transition because maybe you want to start a different business model. You want to focus on a certain niche. But for the most part, everyone I can say once the transition was complete, their revenue per net dollar of AUM increased at 5 to 20%. There are other factors. So where I was from, they were paying renewals and trails and all this other stuff and some bonuses and things like that. So those you have to take into account. Like I always say, money shouldn't be the number one reason why you leave. Should be in the top 3, probably the number 2, because we have responsibilities, families, things like that. I created a revenue delta spreadsheet, I call it, where I input even the benefits I was getting and things like that down to the dollar. So I knew what revenue I would be at when I left, assuming a certain percentage that were coming and things like that. And I could tell you my first year, that number, we blew past it. Actually, we had our best revenue year to date was that year.
So that goes into our question. Let me ask you, Carm.
Yep.
What am I going to do? So some advisors back in the day sold a lot of annuities, et cetera, et cetera. They were on a brokerage platform. They were pushed to move these products through their clients. What do I do with all these old variable annuities I've got?
There's really nothing you can do with them as of right now. And it really depends on your contract with the company you're breaking away from. There may be some kind of restriction. Could be a 12, 24-month restriction of moving. What a lot of advisors do if they have annuity business that say they're still in surrender periods, they wait till that surrender period's out and then discuss with the clients what the next steps are potentially. We found a lot of advisors that we're taking out of these environments, they'll have a household that has an annuity, that has a managed account, that maybe has a 529 plan, right? That's very common. So a lot of times that advisory relationship is still active after transition, where they're still talking to the client about that annuity, and they'll know the data from when it comes out of surrender charge, and they'll make that decision then. That's what I see as the most common.
So there are, on the independent space too, you can actually still be a true, so that's kind of, I think, some of the confusion, right, in this industry, right? There's There's advisors that leave big brokerage houses that go to independent brokerage houses that then hang their own shingle and call it Carmine's Financial on the door. Those aren't actually, that's not true independence. You're actually underneath the hood of another broken dealer. If you're true going RIA only, that's a little bit different. And true RIA only, because you don't have a broker, a relationship, you can go work with, there's other brokers. We should actually have one of them on here, like PKS.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is one where these brokers will actually move those variable businesses or parts of your business to them. So at least it gets it away from the current brokerage you're with. And then they're not hostile, right? They're not calling the clients constantly trying to resell them, those kind of things. So there is solutions for it, but it's difficult. And there's kind of this weird intersection that happens between SEC registrant or state registrant and then insurance licensing, right? Whereas the brokerages have kind of figured that out under FINRA. That hasn't really been figured out in the independent space very cleanly yet. There's a bunch of lawsuits happening, et cetera. But that is an area where I think going independent can be more confusing than being with a larger brokerage. But there is a way to solve for it out there. It's just a little bit more artistic, let's call it.
I'll even take it a step further. There was a misconception from a couple teams we were talking to that, hey, I believe in annuities for a certain type of person, or I have these large non-qualified annuities with gains. I don't want to take clients out of the annuity chassis to pay the taxes. We have relationships with multiple annuity carriers on the fee side where the advisors can do an exchange to a new non-qualified annuity, not trigger a taxable event. And you're dropping the M&E charges to the clients by, 80, 70% with no surrender period. So complete flexible product to the client, much less cost to the client. And you talk about investment options that I never even thought annuities had the ability to do. But when you get on the SEC side and away from that broker dealer side, to me, the options become much more client centric. Costs come way down. And why is that? If you go to one of those regional BDs, like you were talking about, they have selling agreements.
Target premium, Carmine. Can't leave target.
Oh, yes. It's another one. Yep. Me and a colleague of mine presented a large retirement plan. This was even before I went independent. And I'm sorry, it was soon after. And we presented a vendor, a custodial relationship, replacing their current 401k vendor. And at the end, the CFO said, hey, someone just presented that same company, but the fee structure is much different. So I said, well, okay, I'm not quite sure. Do you know what the proposal, he goes, yeah, I have it right here. He was here this morning. He was from, I don't want to say, a wirehouse. He gives me the proposal. And it's the same company, different product. So this company was issuing on a 401k platform an annuity-based solution and an institutional solution. Institutional solution being much cheaper to the client. The annuity solution much more expensive. What do you think they had the selling agreement for? Only the annuity solution, because there was revenue there to pay that broker dealer through their selling agreement. With us, we didn't really care. We only get paid a fee. Here's our fee, complete transparency. And we won the business because of that lack of options, only because that broker dealer says we'll only allow our advisors sell what we're going to get paid on. In the RA space, that doesn't exist. So it really puts the client's needs front and center and not the firm's needs front and center. And that's a huge difference.
Let's talk about target premium, because I think there's another, and this is one that I learned as I was creating an RIA. So there's when you're an RIA, you partner up with what's called IMOs, independent marketing organizations. And what they'll do is they'll distribute a lot of the insurance products if you're going to use insurance in your practice. Now, there's some advisors that are, I'm fee only, I don't touch insurance. My perspective on the issue is insurance is an important part of the client's overall risk management, but it needs to be done prudently. It's kind of, I think what's happened with the insurance industry is there's been so much abuse through annuities and whole life policies that a lot of advisors have just kind of thrown it out, baby with the bathwater, when it's actually a really important part of a risk reduction plan for a client. And I feel like if you just send your client off to some insurance agent, it's like sending your client to the wolves. I'm sure there's good insurance people out there, but it's you have to be very careful. And what happens when you go out to negotiate with these IMOs, they'll negotiate target premium with you. So for example, if the payout on insurance product, let's say, is $20,000, what they'll say to you is, well, we can adjust the target premium so that the actual payout looks to be $15,000, but $5,000 goes straight to the house first. And then you have your split on the insurance. And what a lot of advisors don't realize is that broker dealers they're working with have adjusted the target premium already. So they're saying, oh, your cut that, say, for example, is 40% and the broken dealer is 60%. They've already taken 20% off the top. And they don't disclose that to you. They don't tell you that, but that's the reality of how that business works. And so as an advisor, you're getting gypped, right? Because they've already created fluff in the system, right? It reminds me of early on in my career, I was working for a big lumber facility. And I realized that the owner of the lumber facility had actually gone out and bought a wholesale organization. And then he forced all his yards to buy from the wholesale organization because he put cream in the middle right there for him. And then I'm supposed to look with a straight face at my salespeople and say, hey, you guys are going to make this much money, when knowing full well it's already been, part of the margin's already been sucked out. It's a lot cleaner in the RA space, right?
A lot cleaner.
You don't have games like that.
No.
As much. There are some that get played, but if you have an RA that the leader actually believes in being transparent and open, then there's not those backhanded deals happening.
Here's the next rapid fire question for you, Daren. I'm an advisor. I got an offer. I'm talking to you at Sonoma. I got an offer from one of these big regional BDs, BDRAs, and they're writing me a check, Mr. Blonski. Why wouldn't I just take the check?
Maybe you should take the check.
Easy answer.
Let's talk about that, right? Because I think this is really important. What is independence, right? So for me, when I was leaving where I was at, I was offered very big checks, and they usually had some type of 8-year forgivable loan sequence set up on it. And it was very alluring. I mean, life-changing money in some ways. But what you're trading is problems for different problems. If you're switching around from broker dealer to broker dealer, you're literally just trading off your problems, right? So you get a check, you switch all your clients over, wait 8 years, switch it all over again, wait 8 years, switch it all over again. Like there's a lot of advisors that's their whole game. They're going to stay with the firm for 8 years, then they're going to leave again and take a check each way. They'll do 3 changes in their career and then retire. All along the way, their client's the ones getting screwed over, right? And the reality is, if you're taking a check, it's coming from somewhere. They're not giving you $1 million check to move your book into their business without them making it somewhere. So where are they getting it from, right? Well, they're getting it from transactions potentially on your clients. They're getting it from margin, like I just talked about, target premium. They've got equations where they've already worked down the target premium in a way that they're going to get paid back that money. They're not doing it for free. And so it comes down to, would you like that money up front, or would you like a more transparent structure that over time is truly going to be better for the client? And all too often I hear this bull crap, and this is not to offend anyone because it will, lip service about doing what's right for the client while they're literally taking a check for $1 million, and the client is going to get screwed over from a cost of investing standpoint.
One of the advisors here was offered money from a firm when he was, we were going through a courting process. And I said, look, we don't write checks here. I said, but if they're writing you a check for this, they're making it up 2x somewhere, maybe even more than that, beyond the restricted time frame of the 5-year, 7-year stay, whatever it was. I said, just go peel that onion. Ask these questions. I gave a list of questions. Turns out this firm had their own proprietary custodial platform that he had to use. And he was told, oh, but listen, we're onboarding with Schwab, so by next year, you'll be able to move over to Schwab. So I talked to him recently, maybe about this a few months ago, and he said, hey, by the way, did you know that other firm, they still haven't brought on Schwab? This was 3.5 years ago. And that's where that firm was making money. It was a very restrictive platform. The trade tool was antiquated, to say the least. The list of investments he was able to do was very limited. So he was giving up a lot of that functionality, and they were making money on that custodial platform. And so peel that onion, they're making it up somewhere. And the other way is they're not going to give you a payout that's proper that you would get in the independent RIA space. So if someone says, hey, I want to check for this to come over, great. Well, I'll give you this check, but your payout's going to look like this for the next 7 years. And it's going to be adjusted then. So really, when you're being offered that check, start asking questions, a lot of questions. Peel that onion. You'll get to see where that money's coming from.
And for some people, I guess they justify that it's worth it for them. But I really would ask that you think about how it goes through the lens of the client, right? And it's interesting to me, even in the era of a form CRS, all these disclosures, it's still not super transparent about how all the fees are being collected, where they're coming from, unless you literally have a PhD in reading legal jargon. It's very difficult. So, Carm, let's pivot to another question. I get asked a lot, well, I just don't know if my clients will come. What would you say to that?
That was a little, if you're an advisor and your transition is out of concern, I'd be concerned, because I think that is, that's in every advisor's back of his head, right? His or her head. I think when you're making that decision to leave and you're communicating your clients that, hey, I'm over at XYZ firm now, and here are the reasons why I left. Now, you're not going to ask them, you're not going to tell them to move over to this and that. Go, look, you as a client, you have the choice to work with any advisor you like, right? And that's kind of the framework that you can lead with when you do talk to that client and tell them of your transition to this other firm. And in essence, you're asking them to rehire you. And I think that is a very powerful thing to do, because what that client's going to realize is, wow, look at all the good work this person's done for me over the last how many years. And I think it solidifies a relationship. And in every transition, there's always a surprise. There's someone that comes that you would have never thought would say, hey, you know what? I'd rather work with you. You wouldn't think in a million years. And there's someone that doesn't come that surprises you. We run a very high success rate here. We have, my book was out of 190 households I talked to, I outbound, all but 2 came. And the 2 were because they were, affiliated with the firm I was at, and which I understood completely. The other 2 advisors that came with me, they ran, one ran 100%, didn't have a 50, 60 households. We ran a 99.4% retention rate between the 3 of us in a month and a half or 2 months. So we ran pretty high. You hit 90, you're popping champagne, right?
Yeah, 90 is real high.
But it means you did a good job. And we were not a volume shop then. We're not a volume shop today. So those relationships were very deep. And we did a lot of great work for these clients, went outside the 9 dots whenever we could. Under promise, over delivered. But if you're doing that for your clients, great. You shouldn't have any fear of losing. Instead, I think it strengthens a relationship. In fact, the reasoning of why you're going independent now creates this narrative of, hey, look, I was restricted here. And it got to the point where I just couldn't, there was a conflict of interest. I'm moving to this conflict-free environment. Now the client's on this journey with you. Wow, I didn't even know you're restricted. That's great. And it got more introductions and referrals in the year we transitioned because of those narratives than we ever did. Especially from centers of influence, like an attorney or accountant. They understand conflict of interest. They understand that.
Yeah, all the attorneys and like CPAs and stuff, I wouldn't say all of them, but sometimes it's shocking how little they actually know. When you change to go independent, they're like, thank goodness. I was just struggling morally with referring to you as a broker.
Yeah.
I heard that many times.
One of them said, well, it's about time.
Yeah, right.
And there was a number of clients. So I was with this large insurance company, but I had Cornerstone Planning Group was my DBA there. Do you know there were how many clients didn't even know I had affiliation with that insurance company when I told them I was breaking away from there? Because they didn't own any of that product. They didn't know that name at all. But to me, they knew me.
Yeah.
They're buying me, not the insurance company. And I'll tell you, those conversations around the why, and this is my new journey, they solidified every relationship. I mean, it should be a fear, but if you can go into this knowing you've really were a steward for your clients all those years, it shouldn't be a fear. You should be excited. The first couple, there was some anxiety, but once we're getting these, I'm so happy for you. This is great news. You know, the more you rep it out, then they become easier. You almost look forward to calling those clients and having those conversations.
Yeah, I would almost say if you're not asking the question, will my clients come? You're going to be in trouble. And the reason is because what I've noticed is advisors who transition really well, there's an element of humility to it. There's an element of like, hey, I'm not going to try and poke the beast. I just want to leave, move my clients off, work with my clients in the future. Where the advisors I've helped transition, I've coached through transition, et cetera, that there was this hubris, like, well, of course they follow me and I'm better than blah, blah, blah. That hubris was detrimental to their business, right? And it told me right away that there's a lack of self-awareness, and that lack of self-awareness gives you a misgauge on the connectivity and relationships you have with your clients. And so you got to be really careful with that. The second thing I'd say is that pretty close to without fail, there's going to be 3 or 4 surprises for the positive and 3 or 4 surprises for the negative. There's actually clients in just about everybody's book who are ready to leave that are looking for the excuse because they're brothers in the business now, or they're, some type of relationship. And then when you make that move, it's the catalyst to make a change that they were thinking about anyhow. So there's always those kind of surprises that happen in the book, and depending on how big your book is, right? Like a book of 60 households and 200 million, that's a very different transition than 200 million and 500 households.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. So it always comes down to that makeup. And the first thing you would have to assess is, where are all these clients? I always tell people to make a green, yellow, red list. And that'll kind of give you a sense if things go really well, here's what you expect. If they go okay, here's what you expect. If they go awful, here's what you expect. And so you kind of know what your frame is you're dealing with here. But I would say generally speaking, if you're a good person and you treat people right and you're honest with them, they're going to follow you, right? They know you and not the company you work for. And I think that's generally been true. It's just the guys and gals that transition who are arrogant, lack self-awareness, and really treat their clients like they're transactions that don't do well. But even saying that, there's an advisor I watched transition who treats everybody like a transaction. Literally everybody in their life is a transaction. And you can, like, anytime you interact with a guy, you're like, where's my wallet? And how's this guy doing? And that's how he behaves. But even then clients still follow him, right? But he's an incredible tactician. But his intent is so corrupt. And I've watched that happen too. So I think confidence, but structured in humility, is absolutely essential to the transition process.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think we're going to leave it there, Carm. There's a couple questions. I hope it's helpful for people and their transition journey. And as always, Carm and I are here if you want to talk and have a conversation about what it means to go independent. Take care.